50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Hi guys, welcome to another Flight Deck 2 Sim tutorial. In today's video we're going to do probably the most requested video to date, which is the visual circuit with touch and goes, or what's known as base training in the airline industry. I'm going to show you pretty much as it's taught during the type rating and as it's conducted in real life. I'll also extract guidance from the flight crew training manual and the QH maneuvers section just before we get going to show you how you can practice this at home using your Microsoft Flight Simulator or a similar flight simulator product perhaps. Now, just before we get going, I'll show you where we are. We're currently in East Midlands Airport, which is used by a number of airlines to conduct base training, because where it is in the United Kingdom is pretty quiet during the middle of the day to conduct such training. And you can see here, this is the visual circuit we're going to be flying today. We're going to be doing a left-hand downwind circuit at East Midlands on runway 27. Now, it's usually right-hand circuit, especially because it's the cadets in the right-hand seat that are doing this training, but because most of you sit in the left-hand seat when you fly Microsoft Flight Simulator in the 737, we'll do left-hand circuits, which makes it a lot easier if you're going to be looking outside left, because it is a visual maneuver. You need to be looking at the runway. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to take off, climb straight ahead to 2,000 feet. We'll take off using the automation, so we'll use the auto throttle, we'll use the flight directors. We'll level off at 2,000 feet, disconnect the auto throttle, turn the flight directors off, and then make a left turn to fly downwind. Now you can see here that based on our gross weight today, which is typical for base training, I'll talk about that in a little bit later. We're going to set an attitude of about 6 degrees and thrust of about 55%, and we're going to maintain flap 5 during the entire circuit, which is going to give us a speed of approximately 170-180 knots or so, and we leave it at flat 5 the whole time. We never actually fly at a speed higher than that when we're actually in the visual part of the circuit. When we're abeam the runway, we'll start timing, and we'll time for 35 seconds. After the 35 seconds is up, we'll configure gear down flat 15 and do the we'll start the landing checklist of flaps. When we get to abeam the runway plus 50 seconds, we'll select flap 25, and then we make a turn on base leg. And we then set a very steady rate of descent of about 500 feet per minute, looking outside the whole time, looking for the pappies. We want to be looking for 2 reds, 2 whites when we turn final. At some points during the base turn, we select the landing flap, and when we're on final, we set the reference attitude and thrust setting of about 1 degree 55%, which is for a 60-ton aircraft, which is what we are today. And then we go and make a landing, or a touch and go, as it would be on the first approach. Now, the touch and go is going to be quite challenging on a desktop simulator because it's obviously a multi-crew environment in real life, but I am going to attempt to do it and make it as realistic as possible. But after touchdown, typically the line training captain would take control of the thrust, and just the cadet maintains the centerline with rudders. But we'll then set the thrust lever to roughly the vertical position. We're going to get then the takeoff config warning horn sound, which is completely normal because we've got the landing flap out. We'll select flap 15, set about 6 units of trim. When we have flap 15 set, we'll set the thrust to about 85 to 90% N1, and then we'll rotate at VREF, which is the minimum approach speed, which is also the same as V2 for flap 15, so we know it's a safe speed. And then we're going to rotate and then straight into another circuit. Now, all the circuits after the initial one, we don't go up to 2,000 feet, we actually get to 400 feet above aerodrome level, and then make a left turn downwind. We call that the green circuit. Saves a bit of time, saves a bit of fuel, and it's also a lot of fun because you get to bank the aircraft at about 25 degrees angular bank, very close to the ground to join the downwind circuit. So that's pretty much it. What we're going to do today is 1 takeoff, 1 full circuit, a touch and go. We'll do 1 of the green circuits, 400 feet left turn, and then a full stop landing. But in reality, each cadet would do 5 touch and goes and 1 full stop landing. They must do a minimum of 6 landings during their base training. And you can do as many as you like if you want to practice at home, basically until you run out of fuel. Okay, so just before we get started, push back and taxi to the holding point, I just want to show you what I've got up in the FMC to help you set this up if you want to practice it at home. So for the routing, all I've simply done is gone from East Midlands to East Midlands. Departures, I've simply selected runway 27 with a Daventry 3 November, which we're obviously not going to fly the SID today. And for the arrivals, I've selected ILS 27. And all I've done is modify them accordingly, because we're not actually really using the FMC today, but it's good to get something in there. So you can see I've got a waypoint straight ahead on the departure. We're ignoring that, we're just going to climb straight ahead to 2,000 feet, make a visual circuit, and then all I've done is gone to the centre fix CI27. Again, we're not using, it's just there as a kind of visual reference, it's something to look at to aid your situation awareness. Performance wise, zero fuel weight, 45 tonnes, which is typical for an empty aircraft with just 6 cadets, a safety pilot, a line training captain as well, and 15 tonnes of fuel on board, which is typically the amount of fuel you'll need to get 6 cadets or 5 cadets done for their base training, with each one doing 5 touch and goes and 1 full stop landing. Typically takes about 2 tonnes each per cadet. Takeoff performance wise, full 22k, nice and simple, no derate, and flap 5 for departure. Speeds V1, V2, VR, and V2 is 141, which is set on the MCP. Look at the overhead panel, it's all pretty much set up as it would be for any departure. All you've got on the flight altitude is 2,000 feet. The aircraft will still be pressurised, but we set that so you don't get the off-schedule descent warning, which is going to be very annoying if you haven't got it set properly. Perfect, so that's pretty much it. That's how you have to set everything pre-departure. I'll get the aircraft started and you can meet me in the holding point ready for some touch and goes. Okay chaps, we're at holding point Alpha 1 runway 27, fully ready for departure. We'll imagine ATC has cleared us for takeoff and cleared us for circuit, so let's pop on all the retract fixed landing lights, and we'll leave the turn off and taxi lights on as well. Confirm we're clear left and clear right, and we're cleared to enter line up and wait runway 27. So a little bit of thrust, 60 tonnes, not terribly light today, but as we go for the day, you know, with real cadets, the aircraft does get very light at the end of the day, and the pitch and attitude thrust settings are very different. This kind of reminds me as well when I first did this 6 years ago. Unbelievable. Time's really gone fast for me. But yeah, what I'm showing you is exactly as we teach in the simulator. This is what they do prior to doing this in real life. I've never actually done the training in real life. You have to be a line training captain. I'm just what they call an SFI or TRI type rating instructor. I have done the safety pilot for this plenty of times. It is very rewarding and interesting to watch. Right, so there we are, lined up on runway 27. Imagine being cleared takeoff. A little bit left to centre line, that's right. Perfect, so let's stand the thrust levers up to 40%. Engines are stabilised, push toga, set takeoff thrust. Back onto the centre line. Ooh, a little bit too much rudder, just like a cadet perhaps would do. There we go, takeoff thrust set indications normal. Light forward pressure on the control column to maintain the nose wheel steering. Just going to pop it down actually. There we go. Release the forward pressure at 80 knots. Waiting for V1.
V1. Rotate.
Rotate 2 to 2.5 degrees per second up to a target altitude of 15 degrees. There we are, airborne. Just going to gear up. Positive rates. Oh, for some reason I don't have a roll mode, so we'll just simply engage. Oh, wait till 400 feet. There we go, 400 feet. Heading select. Pitch up for the flight directors. There we go. And there we go, already in altitude acquire. What we do, just put the flaps 1 to 5. What that does, it gives me the flap 5 bug speed here, so I can accurately fly, because that's the speed at which we want to fly around the circuit. There we go. Just let the auto throttle reduce thrust initially, just as exactly how a cadet would do the first takeoff in real life. Oh, it's ballooned me straight past 2,000 feet, just like a cadet would as well. Being very realistic today. And there we go. We'll just let the aircraft descend back to 2,000 feet manually, and then as soon as we're stabilised there, we'll turn off the flight directors and auto throttle. Just forgot to start timing on takeoff, but we can do that downward anyway. Perfect, so now we're stabilised, turn the auto throttle off, and both the flight directors off, and there we go, let's turn left downwind. So now it's all about attitude and thrust setting, okay, so I'm going to set that 6 degrees and about 55% we talked about earlier, just maintain 2,000 feet. And if you look at the PFD here, what I want to fly is a rate 1 turn, which is about 25 degrees angular bank. I'm just setting an attitude here, just trimming as you can hear to maintain 2,000 feet. There we go. And looking at the ND as well, for some reason I've now got squiggly lines there. We'll try and sort that out later. As I said, it's usually the line training captain will be doing the FMC after takeoff check, so I'm having to do it all on my own and fly manually without flight directors' raw data, so it's a bit challenging. Cool, so just keep this turn going. After takeoff checklist, so air conditioning and pressurisation is set, auto brake 2 off. Quickly look up here. We'll leave the start switches in continuous, they'd usually go off, but I'm not going to be worried about that today. I will imagine the altimeters are set after takeoff checklist complete. So I'm a little bit low here, just get myself back up to 2,000 feet, getting low on speed as well, look, adding thrust. So don't want to ever get low and slow in any aeroplane, let alone a 737. So we're all on a track of 090, which is the reciprocal heading at East Midlands, as you can see. The airport there down to the left, there we go. So just get it retrimmed back down to 2,000 feet, set about 55%. Right, so let's go into the FMC whilst flying manually. This is really bad practice, and we'll extend the centre line again. For some reason that hasn't done the job. Just put 269, execute, there we go. So I've now got a magenta line, and we'll select the VREF of flat 30 for the next landing. So descent and approach checklist, it will be a flat 30 touch and go with no auto brake, no speed brake and no reverse thrust. And it's a visual manoeuvre, the whole time you need to be looking outside, flying at the runway. You'd call ATC and report downwind, and then they'd say perhaps report calling final. We'll just imagine we're being cleared to land already. And you can see how the auto brake is off, that's obviously because we don't want to stop the aircraft, we want to do a touch and go. So if you remember from that diagram, we're just now waiting until we're a beam runway 27, and then we'll start the timing, and it'll be 35 seconds, typically minus half a tailwind component because it's such a light wind. We'll just use the still wind conditions today. So you can see here I've got it perfectly trimmed, no input on the joystick, 56%, a little bit low on speed, add a bit of thrust, and the attitude there about 5.5 degrees or so if I zoom in. There we go. So there we go, oh, just past the beam point, a bit late there, so we'll start the timing now, waiting for about 35 seconds, we'll call it 30 seconds, so I was a bit late with the beam there. And we're just holding flat 5 for the whole circuit, there's our flat 5 speed. Don't know where the VREF's gone, oh, forgot to select it, there we go. Oops, there we go, so make sure we've got there you go, so that's our target speed for final approach there. Just waiting for 30 seconds now. Position looks good, speed's good, all looking alright. So now there's about 30 seconds, it was 35, but because I was late on time, we'll configure now. So gear down, flat 15, match the speed, and we'll do the landing checklist of flaps. So start switches continuous, recall check, speed brake down detent, landing gear down 3 green, auto brake is off, holding on the landing flaps, just adding a bit of thrust now, so don't go low on speed. That's about 55 seconds, obviously it was a bit late timing. So now we go flat 25. Match the speeds, and just, whoa, look at my descent rate. What did I say? 500 feet per minute to you earlier. So just got to watch that, setting about 4.5–5 degrees, and then all the way around, maybe a short base leg, but we'll see how we're going. So there we go, 500 feet per minute, just trimming that out now. Speed I'm controlling with thrust. Oh, this is so challenging in a flight environment. Getting probably very low now, look, 1,000 feet. Look outside, see what we can see. Yeah, 2 reds, 2 whites, not too bad. And what I'm actually using is the ND here slightly to roll out on the extended centre line. Let's select flat 30 now, our landing flap, speed's good. Zoom in a bit so I can look at the instruments. We might be overshooting here slightly, no, not too bad. And whoop, don't want to let the nose drop in the turn, that's a very common error with cadets as well. So overshot the runway slightly, that's fine, as long as I get back onto the centre line. I'll just keep this 25-degree angular bank. Overshot slightly, it's probably quite a common error with cadets in real life, especially when they've got crosswind. But prappies look good, 2 reds, 2 whites, so I am on my vertical profile, and just going to get back onto the centre line. And I've set now 1 degree and about 55%, which is our attitude and thrust setting today. Back onto the centre line. 1,000 feet's checked. We'll complete the landing checklist. Flaps, we've got 30 green light. Landing lights on. We have been cleared for a touch and go. Back onto the centre line. This is completely raw data. So I'm just making corrections based on what I'm seeing outside. So it's still left of centre line there. Getting ready for the touch and go. So 3 reds, still a tad low. There we go. 2 reds, 2 whites. So back on the vertical profile. So let's set that attitude of about 1 degree, ever so slightly low again. So all I'm doing is looking at those pappings and reacting to them. So if I see 3 reds, I'm too low, 3 whites, I'm too high, etc. And just changing the picture accordingly. 500 feet's checked, got no minimum set today. It's just a visual circuit, getting ready for the touch and go. This is going to probably mess it up because I've got to do everything here, but we'll see how we get on. Crossing the M1. Tragically, had that Kegworth incident a few years back. There we go. Coming over the threshold. Speed's good. Thrust maybe a tad low. It's all right.
50, 40,
30.
20.
Check. Close the thrust levers. Holding the attitude. Touching down. There we go. So flaps to 15. Thrust levers to the mid position. There's the takeoff config warning horn, which is completely normal. There we go. Stop now. Just waiting for flap 15. There it is. Let's set 85 to 90%. Waiting for VREF, which is about there, and rotate. It's exactly how it's done in real life. There we go. Positive rate, gear up. And all I'm doing is pitching for that speed. I'm just waiting for 400 feet now. 400 feet, left turn into the circuit. 25 degrees of angle, a bank, select flat 5, match the flat 5 speed. Just pitching now for flat 5. Leave the thrust where it is until we level off. And you have to then level off in the turn, which is a nice, challenging manoeuvre. There we go, straight over the terminal, annoying all the neighbours, neighbourhood surrounding area. There we go, so a bit high on speed now, levelling off, 5 degrees, 55%. There you go, not too bad. Straight into the circuit, just going to roll downwind. And we'll make the next one a full stop landing. Obviously a cadet would do that 5 times, and you can obviously do as many as you like in real life. So getting very high on speed now, so what I'm going to do is just pretty much close the thrust levers, just bring the speed back, just maintain 2,000 feet, back to the rate 1 turn. So, flaps up, no lights after takeoff, checklist, air conditioning, pressurisation set, gear to up and off, water brake will now set to 3 for the full stop landing. And altimeters, QNH 1013 set, maintaining 2,000 feet. Whoops, we're rolling out onto that heading of 090, or tracking 090 for the runway. There we go. Perfect. That actually didn't go too badly, that touch and go. I was pretty impressed. There we go. So now we'll try and do the timing a bit better. So looking outside there. Speed's good. Maybe a tad less thrust. Don't want to start descending now. There we go. So pretty much have been the threshold of runway 09 now. So we'll start the timing for 35 seconds. There we go. Get my seating position right. There we go. So this is quite challenging, as I said, in a desktop simulator, because you're having to do the job of both, captain and first officer here. So just getting my track back to 090, otherwise I'm going to make a very tight turning final, and you're going to overshoot again, which I'll try not to do this time. There we go. So just trimmed out perfectly. Now, there we go, 60%, a bit less than that, 5 degrees. There we go, so coming up to 35 seconds, so gear down, flat 15, match the speeds, and we'll do the landing checklist of flaps now. So start switch is continuous, recall checked, speed brake we can now arm with the green lights, landing gears down 3, order brake is 3 for the full stop landing, holding at flaps. Waiting for the turn. There we go. 50 seconds. Flap 25. 500 feet per minute descent rates. Which I'm just wanting there. So yeah, see how the nose wants to drop in the turn, guys. So you just have to pitch that attitude up slightly. Match the speed to the flap 25 speed. Looking a bit better than I did last time. There we go. 500 feet per minute. And remember, thrust equals speed. In a 737, absolute opposite what it is in a light aircraft here. So just again watching my descent rate, trying to not do more than 500 feet per minute. Let's look outside the window. 2 reds, 2 whites. So that's probably a little bit low at this point. You want to be really seeing 3 whites on base. So I'm going to pretty much just level off here a little bit. There we go. Select the landing flap, which is going to be flap 30. And just keep that turn going. Using the trend vector here to roll out on the extended centre line and looking outside. 2 reds, 2 whites. Profile's looking good. Keep the turn going round. And I'll use that attitude and thrust setting I mentioned earlier, about 1 degree, 55% on final. So we can now start reducing the thrust. Speed's a tad high. Get my seat position sorted out. Oh look, see, I overshot again. That's just a little bit challenging in a desktop simulator. You can't move your head around unless you've got virtual reality or that track IR I heard about. So you might have to invest in that in the future. Good, so back on the vertical profile, just get yourself back on the centre line. 1 degree altitude, 55%, speed's good, maybe a tiny bit high, but not too bad. Nicely trimmed out. And descent approach checklist complete. As I said, it'll be order brake 3, we'll use speed brake and second detent first. Top of the amber bar, so 500 feet above aerodrome level, we're stabilised. 3 reds, so a tad low, so I'm just going to pitch up slightly, back onto the profile, there we go, 2 reds, 2 whites, back to 1 degree, and about 750 feet per minute, so nice rate of descent for this aircraft on a 3 degree ILS. 500 feet checked, back over the M1 again, 3 reds, tad low, so pitching up slightly, there we go, back onto the pappies, set the altitude now, speed's up good, 3 reds, so just did a little dirty dive again. Back onto the pappies. Small corrections when you're very close to the runway at this point. There we go.
50, 40, 30, 20.
Check. Close the thrust levers. Just holding that attitude nicely. Floating a bit there. There we go. Touchdown. So speed brakes up. Select reverse thrust. Let's go second detent reverse. 100 knots. 80 knots. 60 knots, cancelling reverse, cancelling the order brake, and we'll just vacate the next exit on the left. And that, guys, was it. That was a touch and go with a full stop landing. Tried to make it, well, it's pretty much as realistic as it is, you know, that's exactly as it's done in real life, within the limitations of a simulator. It's not that far off at all. It's exactly what we set up in the FMC. Timing's worked out quite nicely. This PMDG really is good at matching the real aircraft. Perfect. So, vacate here left, and just as the sun sets, that was really good timing. And obviously, as I said earlier, in reality, each cadet would do 5 touch and goes, 1 full stop landing. There'll be typically 5 cadets in the aircraft, and that would be done in the morning. They wouldn't be doing it this time of the day. Perfect. Vacating the runway, flaps up, stow the speed brake, turn off the retracts, fix landing light, oops, leave the taxi turn off, and the strobes to steady. Perfect, so I'll go park her up back on stand, and I'll debrief you there again. Alright guys, I've just parked on stand 40 in East Midlands, and that was the visual circuit, or base training as we like to call that in the industry. I really hope you found that interesting and learned something new. Just some top tips for you. If you ever want to fly this accurately, just know your attitude and thrust setting. If you set that and make very small changes, you'll be able to fly very accurately indeed. You can also practice this circuit at any airport you'd like, and you might want to practice it using your home base in Flight Simulator. Just find the track of the runway and set 90 degrees from that for your upwind, and then 90 degrees that for your downwind, and then your base leg accordingly. And the timings I gave you as well, the 35 seconds for the gear down flap 15, and then the 50 seconds for flap 25 turn base, works really well so long as you fly about 2,000 feet above aerodrome level. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting and learnt something new, as I said earlier. Really appreciate the like and subscribe. Fly safe, and I'll see you again very soon.